Good day to every single one of you, wherever you may be watching in the world. I want to thank you for your support. My name is Israel Josie. This is Astrology of the Soul. If you're watching this on Twitter or on Instagram, because the platforms here are limited in terms of time, do follow my YouTube channel link, and it will take you to my YouTube channel, and you can watch the full video there. And also subscribe if you may. I could always do with more subscribers. Thank you for your support. Today I want to talk about the planet Venus. In astrology, Venus is a very wonderful planet, a very special planet. She's the goddess of values. She's the planet that represents values. She indicates our attitudes towards relationships, our ideals in relationships, also our attitudes towards finances, our self-esteem also as well. And I do want to talk about it because there's some very important activity that I feel people should know about. And from about the middle of July, Venus is currently moving closer and closer to the sun. Because since last year, when we had a Venus retrograde, we had a Venus retrograde last year, 2018, round about October, November time, and Venus moved retrograde from Scorpio back into Libra. During this particular time, what happened is she was in front of the sun, and then because of the retrograde motion, she went behind the sun. So she went from an evening star to becoming a morning star. Now, this is very, very interesting. The ancient astrologers and the ancient astrologers of the old always noticed that when Venus moved from being in front of the sun to going behind the sun, meaning moving from an evening star to a morning star, that certain attitudes within society became more prevalent. And because Venus is the goddess of love, the goddess of beauty, what tends to happen is that when she becomes a morning star planet, meaning that she rises before the sun, that's what a morning star is. When we're talking about a morning star, we're talking about rising before the sun. So to just give you a little bit of an analogy here, as you can see, I'm trying to get a little bit high tech. But let's say this is Venus, and let's say this is the sun. So since last year, after the retrograde of Venus, what's been happening is the sun rises in the east. So if this was the horizon, we'd have the sun here, and the sun would cross the eastern point and rise, and then set in the west in the evening. So what's been happening is that the sun has been rising, and Venus has been well, since last year, after the retrograde, Venus went behind the sun, so she's been rising before the sun each morning, meaning that she's more of a morning star. But now what's happening is that Venus is moving closer and closer to the sun, and she's going to go in front of the sun. So she's going to be rising behind the sun, making her an evening star. So we're going to have Venus as an evening star, which is, this is where the ancients used to say that this is where she was at her best behavior. She was much more calm. She was much more cooling. Because if we look at Venus as an evening or a nighttime planet, we know the night is much more cooler in the day. It's things are much more settled. Things are much more much more calm. So she more had that kind of a nature to her. However, when she rises, and since last year, she's been moving in. She's been rising in ahead of the sun during the daily diurnal motion. We've actually seen Venus become much more ferocious, much more aggressive, and it's almost like just going out into the world with a more ferocious kind of energy. And we've been seeing that with a lot of even certain activities that we may be witnessing in society. anything from violence to abuse. And don't get me wrong, these things are always happening. I'm not saying that it's because of this particular thing that's why it's happening, but we're seeing more of it. It's becoming more magnetized. Because Venus is to do with the planet of love, beauty, and our values, there seems to be, it's almost like there's been a more of an aggressive attitude towards how we go about valuing ourselves and valuing other people also as well, which has been manifesting as in certain aggressive ways or violent manners, that we've been seeing, or appropriate manners also as well. Over the course of the last year. So what is happening now is that Venus is getting closer and closer to the sun, because she's going to be moving ahead of the sun, and by moving ahead of the sun, it's going to make her an evening star. This is actually going to be taking place, the day when that actually takes place is going to be on the 14th of August 2019, this year, of course. So that's the day actually when they're going to be at the exact same degree, but then Venus is going to take over the sun and she's going to move ahead of the sun, which is going to make her an evening star. So on the 14th of August, Venus is going to be an evening star. And I think that's when we're going to start seeing things a little bit settled. However, between now and then, and actually since sort of like the middle of July, the sun has been getting closer and closer. Venus has been getting closer and closer to the sun. Now, another important thing that I do want to point out is that in astrology, when a planet is very, very close to the sun, within a specific amount of degrees, so if it's within about approximately 7 or 8 degrees away from the sun, it's known as combust. So for the last month or so, Venus has actually moved in a position where she's been combust. Now, what does combustion mean? If you ever think of something combusting, it's kind of like exploding. Well, symbolically, we know that, well, physiologically, we know that the sun is very, very hot. So symbolically, the sun symbolizes warmth. It symbolizes heat. So when a planet is very, very close to the sun, what happens is it gets burnt up, you see. We could think of perhaps the mythology of Icarus. If any of you know the story of Icarus, and his father made him these wings, which he managed to put together with wax, and which allowed Icarus to be able to fly. But his father did warn him that, look, while you're flying, try not to fly too close to the sun, because obviously he was aware that obviously these wings that he made for him, they were put together, or they were stuck together, with wax. And obviously if you move too close to the sun, it would melt the wax, and one could be in trouble. And Icarus, cut a long story short, obviously flew. He was enjoying the flying, but what happened was he did fly too close to the sun at some point, and the sun melted that wax, and he just came tumbling down like a ton of bricks. So when planets are close to the sun in astrology, it's seen as quite, it's not so great. Another thing about the light also as well, I think another symbolic thing that we can take from the light, in terms of what the light does, when there's too much light can blind. Too much of anything in life, we know, is not necessarily good for us. Whether it's physiologically, mentally, spiritually, too much of anything can be overwhelming, can be, overpowering for us, and it can be too much for us to handle. So while Venus is actually moving close with the sun, and she's going to be combust the sun until about the 9th or 10th of September, I believe, or shortly just after that. So she's still going to be very, very close to the sun, where she's still in a range where she's going to be combust. So what does this mean, essentially speaking? Well, being that she's the planet of love, harmony, values, what we value, these are the things that are going to be coming under scrutiny for us. Especially if you are a Taurus or you are a Libra, I would definitely try to be aware of your sense of values and the roles that you're playing in a relationship. And even also if you are Taurus rising or you are Libra rising. I would also watch out for that too. Or even if your moon is in one of those signs too. So if you've got moon in Taurus, or you've got moon in Libra also as well, or if you've even got planets in Libra or in Taurus, that, you know, because Venus is the ruler of those signs, you know, it will definitely have some kind of effect in your life. But generally, globally, this cosmic activity is out there and is affecting all of us on some level, you know, in some way, shape, or form. So because she's moving closer to the sun in regards of relationships, one has to be careful because one may be blinded by particular things. If you're just starting out a new relationship, I'm not saying do not start a new relationship, but what I am saying is that do try to be aware of what it is that you want, or what it is that you're seeking, what it is that you're looking for within a relationship. Also, because Venus is also connected with money, and we have to be very, very careful with the ways in how we are spending our money and our attitudes towards money, and and just looking at how we deal with our own self-esteem. You know, do you feel comfortable in your own skin, in the way you look? Because these are a lot of the things of that we're going to be seeing more prevalent, you know, in society, really, really playing out. It also as well in terms of money as well. So for those of you who are Aries rising, and for those of you who are Aries rising, sorry, and for those of you who are Virgo rising, so Aries rising and Virgo rising, also as well, do watch out, because that means Venus is going to be ruling your second house, which is the house of money also as well. So those are the two signs as well. Those two signs also need to be very cautious in terms of money. Because like I said, Venus is moving close, so a lot of things are going to get burned out. Now, there's two aspects of this. Now, although it may be blinding, it may be overwhelming, it may be overpowering because of the nature of the sun, that the nature of the sun has. Another thing is that there are certain things that need to be burnt off also as well. So the sun, the sun also, heat purifies, it purges. So Venus right now is also going through a purging stage also as well. So by Venus going through a purging stage, that's also going to affect our psychological makeup and our attitudes towards relationships, towards money also as well. So there may be certain things to do with our attitude towards money, or how we go about making money, that needs to be let go, that we need to kind of let go of. So these are the kind of things to also take on board. There are some very helpful and supportive things also taking place, because Venus is also trining Jupiter right now. Although Jupiter is also retrograde, I believe he comes out of retrograde around about the 12th of August, you know, so not too far away. But so there is a trine between the Sun and Venus. You know, they're trining the Sun in Sagittarius at the moment. So that can be of some great help. But also, remember, Jupiter is the planet of expansion. So by Jupiter, you know, expanding, he can also maybe reinforce that blindness even more and make it even more confusing, or make us spend even more money by overindulging and by drinking more and by spending more, and doing more outrageous kind of things. And especially since that the Sun and Venus at the moment are in the sign of Leo, and this is a sign that really likes a sense of attention, you know. So it's really going to be about how we feel about ourselves, that part of ourselves where we need to develop some sense of, integrity, and how our sense of self-value, how do we value ourselves? Now, over the course of the last month, I'm sure, depending where you are on the globe, we've all been hearing the news, acts of violence. It was quite interesting, actually, the moment when Venus started to move in, the moment she started to decombust with the Sun, we heard the activity with Donald Trump and those, was it 3 or 4 ladies in the Congress, and they had and Venus rules women. So this is quite, very, very interesting. So we may hear a lot about women, We may hear a lot to do with the financial or the budget on a whole. So do watch out in terms of how the budget is going to be played out, not only your individual budget, but the national budget, so budgets of countries, you know, because again, Venus has a lot to say about budgets and our expenditures, you know, and what it is, where are we putting, you know, energy in terms of our values, you see. So do be cautious while Venus is moving, although astrologically, position-wise, she's perhaps moving into a quote-unquote better place, in a better position, because when she moves to an evening star, like I said, her nature is much more calm. If we look at things in the night, because Venus is a nighttime planet, she favors the night time. So in the night, hence why we hear the words, things like Lady of the Night, you know, in the night, she's much more calm, she's much more peaceful, you know, whereas when she's a morning star, or when she's rising before the sun, that's when she's a morning star, she tends to be a little bit more kind of aggressive, a bit more forthgoing in regards to how she goes about things. And we've been seeing a lot of that again in society. So after about, let's say, I would definitely say from about September, October onwards, definitely, again, because she won't be combust at that time, we're going to start to see perhaps a more mellow activity within you know, human consciousness and the human psyche being much more kind of you know, more calm, and perhaps being able to value things and take appropriate steps in showing our value and our appreciation for things and for people also as well. So do be aware over this course of these next 2-3 weeks, while Venus, like I said, she's going to move into, and she's going to become an evening star on the 14th, 15th of August. That's when she's going to move ahead of the sun and she'll become an evening star. But at present, she's still, you know, a morning star right now. So she's still there. And plus she's combust also as well, you see. So do be careful in terms of how you're treating people. Try to be fair. Try to be balanced as you can. Try to see things objectively as you can, and those are the kind of things that I would definitely advise you to. And also your attitudes towards gaining money and your attitude towards money also as well, to be try to be fair. Try not to be too kind of caught up in yourself in terms of how you look. You know, building your self-esteem and things of that nature. These are the kind of things that we're going to be seeing much more of. We're probably going to be seeing much more television programs, perhaps, that are going to have more of a Venus or Venusian emphasis, that is more going to be to do with love and romance and looks and you know, self-esteem and things of that nature also as well. So do enjoy the summer period, but do be mindful your attitudes towards money, especially if you're a Libra or you're a Taurus, because that's your ruling planet, and also if you're Taurus or you're Libra rising, or if you have planets in Libra or in Taurus as well, and also for you Aries rising and Virgo rising also as well, to be cautious, because that means Venus is also going to be ruling your second house. On that note, take care, be observant, be polite, try to be kind, try to share, try to pay more attention on your values, on what you value, on what you want, and your desires, because Venus is also connected with a certain amount of our desires, our attitudes towards relationships. Again, because we don't want to be blinded by the sun's light, because the sun is very, very powerful. You know, it can really overtake, it can really overpower any planet that comes within a very, very close degree of where the sun is. So on that note, do enjoy, do subscribe to my channel, and I will be back with you very soon, as I always am. Thank you very much, guys.